My name is Angelica Chakela, and I am a human earth angel. I am a humanitarian. I have an urgent message for the Pope and all world leaders. This is a God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit sent message. To please remember the orphans in the world. There are millions of orphans in the world. These are children left without their parents. These are children, babies, toddlers, children of all ages, teens, kind-hearted souls. All of these children love to be taken care of by parents, but due to unforeseen circumstances such as natural disasters, the COVID pandemic, environmental strains, AIDS, certain wars, other means beyond their control, these kind little souls, these children, have been left orphaned. They need kind-hearted caregivers and parents. They have a dignity of God within them, these kind-hearted souls. These innocent babies, toddlers, teens, these innocent children have a dignity of God within them, which is a valuable life that belongs to God, a brain, mind, heart, organs, soul, and physicality that belongs to God and has a right to be respected at all times. By all humans, especially those with money to help find caregivers for these innocent children who have a right to have proper shelter, proper clean water to drink, proper amounts of nutritious food to internalize, proper schools to go to, proper funding for them to have games to play with other children, sports, proper funding for items such as pencils, pens, erasers, paper, for them to use to learn, books. They are kind-hearted children, but left without parents and caregivers, and most unfortunately in the most poorest countries in the world and regions. These are things beyond their control. But there are those, the Pope, the Pope Francis, and future popes. There are the world leaders, especially the countries with billions of dollars, who haven't done their part in their job description entirely for years. Unfortunately, they know when they sign up for their jobs, it is to respect human dignity. To respect the dignity of a valuable life of all humans, especially children left alone without parents and caregivers, to find caring individuals, to fund organizations to help accomplish this for little children, babies, toddlers, to find caregivers that get along with each individual, a child, baby, toddler, teen, each have a personality. Our kind hearted souls need good role models of clean mind and etiquette, someone to care for them, to be good role models, to have enough money to help raise them throughout their life so they can live until adult age and after as needed. All children rightly deserve a caring parent or caregiver, but these orphans are left alone. There are some humans that care and take care of these innocent children, these orphans. These humans need funding. They need funding of all kinds for proper shelter, for drinking clean, proper drinking water, rather, for food. In the most poorest parts of the world, most in hot climates, some in cold. The Pope and all world leaders have all the billions of dollars and resources, and the previous popes and the world leaders, mainly American president and Canadian prime minister, and all of the other countries, have the billions of dollars. They didn't do everything in their job description to help the less fortunate, to help the orphans, to put funding for homes, for the basic necessities of life for innocent children who are left without parents to care for them, to provide these basic necessities of life that have a valuable life, a dignity of God within them, religious or not, to be respected by all humans, especially of all job titles that have the resources and billions of dollars to support them, to find proper caregivers for them, to put funding into proper schools to be built there in these countries, to put the money into sending proper clean water to these countries, to make facilities that clean the water there from bacteria and viruses, funguses, to mobilize funding there to other humans obviously beyond poor that would love to work and put funded greenhouses so they can grow their own vegetables and proper nutritious food to help the orphans and their caregivers. There are millions of orphans in the world, most in the warmest climates in the world, dehydrated, with no meals, and suffering alone. No human, especially a baby, toddler, or teen, should be left alone. They need a caring parent, caregiver, a good role model to be there for them at all times to help raise them, especially till adult age, until they can take care of themselves at the very least. These children, these orphans, do not have these people. They are alone. They do not have enough clothing. They wear the only clothing they have on their backs. They do not have toys to play. Most are ill due to ailments, health concerns, skin conditions from the sun. This could have and should be avoided by all world leaders for already many, many years. But it hasn't been. The world leaders and Pope have to respect human dignity. Of the little children, the orphans, they have the millions of dollars and billions they put into useless things over the years. They fly in their jets and planes to World Summit meetings, endangering lives with barely COVID masks on, and pay for the fuel. They don't have to travel to other countries to accomplish this. They can do it online. They need to respect the dignity of human life of little children, orphans. They have to understand that they chose in their job description to respect humans when they sign up for their jobs as world leaders and Pope. To think of all the humans that they will be a good role model for in all the countries that they are governing. The Pope is the human representative on earth of God. He has high authority in his job and say in all what the world leaders are doing. He has to be a morally right example to keep up to date with what is going on in the world, especially with the orphans. This Pope, Pope Francis, and previous ones in years haven't been doing all under God in their job description to accomplish this. They cannot make their paychecks under God and by law. The world leaders, the American president, the previous ones, the Canadian prime minister and previous ones, the governments of other countries have the billions of dollars We're neglecting the little orphans, the other poor. They have to act now. Under God, every job title, description, when they are hired, know they're going to deal with and are asked by the employers if they are going to do their job that they're trained to do as world leaders and the Pope, to consider and respect all human dignity, human rights, ethics, all bioethics laws, respect all races, to do everything in their job description that they possibly can as human, trained to do, to respect human dignity, to make sure there is proper funding for all humans in their own countries and those less fortunate, the countries that have less money, to assist all humans there, especially orphans that cannot take care of themselves, are too young, and cannot work. Beyond their control are suffering horrendously alone, with no caregivers, no funding for any clean water every day, need few bottles, need 3 meals a day, night, a warm, safe place to sleep, a bed, mattress, simple covers, clothing as much as needed, proper materials, made clothing, if they're in the sun, to be covered skin so they don't get sunburn, cancers, to be protected, to have scent masks, fully funded, paid for, to prevent the spread of coronavirus and variant strains and other diseases, bacteria, medical facilities to be built and funded. The humans that live in these countries where these orphans are beyond poor in themselves and have kind hearted humans that choose to take care of these children. These orphans, they all have kind hearts and souls, personalities, are little humans, deserve to be respected with those that have the most money, and in their job description, all resources to instantly make a phone call and have to act now and do what they haven't done for years. To put money into these real orphanages, to find these children. These are babies, toddlers, learning to walk, elementary school, high school level, teenagers, children, left alone, suffering, crying with no parents, no one to take care of them, alone on the street, no one to give them food, no one to help them if they're ill, no one to teach them anything, no teachers, no house, no shelter from the sun or the cold, no one to stay with them at night time so they are not alone. There are millions of children orphaned in the world. Currently, not as many in Canada or the States. There's funding for housing and find foster families for these children. But in other countries, mainly in Africa, there are millions to billions of children alone. This is not 1 second, keep in mind. Every 100 million seconds in a day, they do not have a meal, breakfast, then they have no calories, dehydrated, no water. During the next second hours, need a snack, none. Then they're hungry even more, starving. Then at lunchtime, they don't have a meal, water. These children are disrespected by the world leaders. They are disrespected by the Pope and previous popes, who in their job description have the job and all resources and financial resources and all contact information to maneuver all relief efforts to where the orphans are, to fund every basic necessity of life, to build homes, orphanages, proper humane living conditions for these orphans' children as long as needed, to fund caregivers and parents, adoptive parents rather, for these children, to find safe homes, to make agencies that deal with these to find these children a safe family that would love to take care of them, to fund this for them entirely, to interview potential parents, to adopt these innocent children, babies, toddlers, left alone. The Pope and Pope Francis and trying to find a different Pope if the next one is found in his job title, and all the world leaders have to act now. They haven't done over the past 100 years everything in their job description and have enough money to do. To fund even simple housing, water, to be sent to these orphans. They have the militaries they fund needless air shows in Toronto and Canada that harm the hearing and physical health of people with B-2 stealth bombers flying faster than the speed of sound. Flying over a city for a show, funding fuel, and a plane to be built such as that, but they have no respect for human life to give money to innocent children to live. They fund police departments in Canada and the States and other countries with police cruisers more expensive than a house, and have two police showing up and and to maintain peace, to ask certain questions to humans, with the vehicles paying for gas driving around doing nothing for a million staff of these in Ontario and Canada alone, and in the States is obviously known. This money could be given to children that need to live. Could take less money given to those who need jobs, police, and don't need that many driving around doing anything. Could put at least less expensive vehicles. They don't have to fund cruisers. Every human life is valuable. Those in the high job titles have the resources, have the military relief, trained caring staff to maneuver assistance, cases of water, food items, masks, medical equipment, to fund hospitals, basic medical clinics, vaccination clinics, to Africa and all other countries that are most poor, to care for the children, the orphans. The world leaders and Pope of all different countries, they have the $1 billion. They have neglected to accomplish this for years. They are not allowed to neglect this. These are innocent lives that are suffering. It is morally wrong, ethically wrong. What these world leaders have been doing for the past more over 100 years. Their job is to respect human dignity, provide proper housing, shelter, medical care, enough food and water, and proper funding for schools and for proper teaching for jobs, proper funding for the basic necessities of life that they as a human want to have and right to have, as well as all orphans. All these are beyond poor. These are children with no families, spending milliseconds alone day to night and alone in the dark at night with no food, starving, dehydrated, some affected by mosquitoes catching other diseases, rodents, spreading diseases, viruses, coronavirus, variant strains, no humans maneuvering vaccines to these areas that exist everywhere else in the world. No free COVID masks sent there, paid for by these world leaders to help those less fortunate countries of these orphans. These are children, these are not adults. To find caregivers, foster homes, to build homes so other people would love to take care of these children but can't afford. Clothing can be bought in bulk these days of nice material cared for by the world leaders, personally sent there. They haven't done this for over 100 years. Amongst other things, they live in their mansions in the White House, the Ontario government. They have these huge mansions with their offices, millions of dollars, billions in their budget to fund humans, housing, and basic necessities of life, to help the less fortunate countries and those orphans to be respected by all those that have more and are morally responsible under God and by law in their job description to help them, but have not been doing. These children have a right and have a bright future and have emotions, a soul, to be respected, a dignity of God within them, to be treated with respect as every other child in every country at all times, to have a caregiver, a nice, warm, temperate home, sheltered from the elements, enough food and water meals to last as long as they need to be taken care of. This can easily had to be funded rather for years. It hasn't been done. Even the adults in these countries are beyond poor themselves, have almost no jobs, barely make houses out of some leaves, some cardboard walls. These are human beings born into countries where there is not enough shelter to begin with. And humans had children and were left there because of natural disasters, different diseases, pandemics, and left alone. These are orphans. No one wants to be left alone at any age, especially a child. So the world leaders and the Pope Francis, you have to understand. You wouldn't want your child to be left alone without food and water especially in hot climates, with not enough white proper clothing to shelter them from the sun so they don't get sunburn, cancer, so they don't get dehydrated, without enough water, without enough electrolytes, without any food. But you have been neglecting these innocent orphans, children in these countries for years. While you lived and made your paycheck and you couldn't do without helping them. By law and under God. You know what your job titles are. You waste money on things such as I told police departments of humans driving around doing nothing. This is more important to fund housing for an infant and to find proper caregivers to raise a child. To provide enough food and water, you have the billions of dollars to do. Stop your $1 billion funding of this, even military, when there's even no wars. Useless B-2 stealth bombers flying in air show harming my health and 100 million people. Needlessly, we paid gas for that. A plane that costs beyond millions of dollars. That is useless to fly in an air show. To take that funding and respect the children. They right they have rights as human beings to proper medical care, proper vaccinations, proper antibiotics, any all well-known vaccines in the world in the main countries have access to, paid for by the main governments, prime ministers, world leaders, but they do not have because they are in a poor country and those in the main countries are neglecting to help these people, these orphans children. They cannot do this. The world leaders and Pope, under God and haven't for years, those and previous president and prime ministers in all countries that know clearly that these children, millions to billions, exist still, are not doing their job. Under God, they cannot make their paycheck. They have neglected to provide the basic necessities of life for millions to billions of orphans and children, then throughout teenage years, to provide proper places to live, to find a safer place, country for them to live. They have all the resources, did absolutely nothing. Under God, they don't get away with it. In their job description by law, they can't. They have to maneuver funding and their paycheck and do morally right and apologize to the infants, ask forgiveness, orphans from the orphans. They have to care for the poor. They are morally obligated under God, religious or not, no, in their job title, to do everything in their job description, which is to help those, to have the shelter, food, and water, proper basic schools, funding for it, an orphanage built, a simple building with proper temperature regulation in it. Even that one building alone will keep the children safe, monitored by even one staff or as many needed, there for them when they need it, safe off the street, not in the night alone in the dark, a baby, a toddler, freezing or too warm, in hot temperatures with no food, dehydrated, suffering from many different bacteria and viruses, funguses, no clean drinking water, and suffering poor hearts damage, crying alone, and dying. Well, they have $1 million and take their children, the world leaders, and they know, and fund expensive clothing for their own children. The White House itself is a huge building, and the Vatican never put there to help anyone in that building. the Canadian offices, government, prime ministers, other world leaders, negligent to the needs of those who need it the most and have in their job description morally obligated under God and by law to do, and have to act now or turn your paycheck in and resign. You are not proper good role models for all humanity that tune in and to see what you're doing to run countries. You don't have a respect for the dignity of human life. What you're doing is morally wrong and unethical. You disrespected the dignity of a life, a valuable life of child that has a bright future, but not providing basic necessities of life, even till adult age and after, for those less fortunate to provide caregivers so they are not alone. Could easily fund but didn't. There are laws on earth that have been disrespected by the world leaders, all of them, and have to stop and hire someone who cares and will make the $1 million in their job description and use the money in the resources they have billions to actually care for humanity, to care for the orphans and maneuver funding in a bank account immediately to there, and the humans there need jobs anyway and will help their economy have find jobs for these humans that would love to build a home immediately for their little orphans. Humans to have funded a school then, teachers. All children have a right to live their lives in every country respected. Every individual has a life and soul. Belongs to God, a bright future. Love to learn, have pencils like everyone else, pens, nice erasers, papers, books. Millions of dollars is put in. There's needless money being wasted in the wrong things while children are suffering with no food and water. Hundreds of years more. The Pope's doing absolutely almost nothing, almost making speeches, but never acting to see in the world and actually do anything. To call these world leaders who have the funding of each country to maneuver it to those who have less, and there's their job description to do. To promote the well being and the respect of human dignity of every life. To care for other humans that other countries especially have less, to fund housing. Simple buildings will keep, as I stated, children off the street immediately, will not be alone. Even one caregiver in a building, they have someone there and they're not alone, not crying in the dark alone for hours with no food and no water. There's stores in Canada alone that sell bottles of water, 20 say for $2, can easily be shipped to this Africa and other countries, and the children have water. It is not that expensive, but the planes that they have B-2 stealth bombers flying in air shows and other ones jets needlessly, and pay for that while the children are suffering alone, dehydrated. With their children, these world leaders wouldn't want done to them, and they don't want to be suffering if they didn't want to be left alone. The American president, the previous ones, there's a secretaries of state under them. They've employed other UN deal with the world leaders, different the World Health Organization. Other ones have billions of dollars, are doing nothing. What they actually need to care for humanity. They do one or two speeches, and that even basically get one or two words right, and barely in pandemic update their site and other information leave out. This is not a respect of humanity. This is not a respect of human dignity, of human valuable lives. They're not doing everything in the job description that they possibly can when they are actually trained and study even over 4 years to learn what this job is mainly dealing with humans, setting a good morally right example, and to maneuver, make budgets for all, have the money to run each country and the Pope, huge authority, say, over world leaders, the human representative of God on earth. Respect of Jesus for the less fortunate, to be merciful, to have used their virtues of kindness and compassion, to act with the resources they have, which is money, and clean water and food, resources, proper resources to make shelter less expensive and proper to the elements. There's many modern technological advances that could, even without a lot of money put into, but put proper shelter with proper materials made, and would keep the children out of the sun and out of the cold. Hire this staff, would care humans, even volunteer to help the children, properly funded teachers and proper games sent there, soccer balls. There's $1 million stores in Canada that sell items that are basically a few cents to a dollar that could be sent to children there. And other countries in the world, there are millions to billions of orphans. It is in beyond their control and will don't have parents to take care of them. Unfortunately, to buy them these toys, any soccer ball, any paper, pens, pencils, no water, and no food they have, no umbrellas from the rain, acid rain, protect their skin, to have beds, a mattress, simple one, pillows, soft one of proper materials. There are millions of companies in Canada that make another ones when it takes pennies that they've been making for years, can in bulk send these, and the Prime Minister of Canada and the President American one and all other countries have to do their job and contact these major retailers. Take the few pennies, is not even that expensive, find the proper materials and care, and ship it there to Africa, to the other countries. There are certain countries well known that need this assistance for years, but the world leaders neglected to help them. Under law, they cannot do this, and under God, they don't get away with it. What they are doing is morally wrong. They cannot make their paycheck. As long as they neglected this, the previous look into presidents, prime ministers, and pope, and all world leaders, and they cannot make their paycheck because they didn't do everything in their job description to respect the dignity, the rights of innocent lives, to help them make sure they have even basic necessities of life, provided care and caregivers and simple homes, beds, pillows, food and water, and basic school supplies, games as needed, as long as they're children so they're not alone, especially till even adult age. There are millions alone there, not any food, suffering needlessly, and as I speak, going million seconds and not doing anything, any world leaders still to look into it, or the Pope, but are on Twitter every day, have their $1 million paying for different electronic devices, luxuries, flying in these big jets to summit meetings they could do online and save them money and prevent the exhausts polluting the environment from these planes, and give this money to these children who don't have parents every million seconds standing there to give them food, a baby bottle, no milk, no formula, no nutrients of a baby to raise to a toddler and then caregiver, are alone, dying on the street, in the dark, alone, and no one to help them. While they live in luxury, these prime ministers in previous years, still morally obligated when they even resign, didn't do everything in job description, have to give their money back and help the victims, these orphans that they were supposed to help. They cannot hire humans, no, when they're employed. They're not going to do everything in their job description, cannot employ the prime minister, pope, president, if they're not going to do everything in their power to respect human dignity and life, to provide the basic resources, the basic necessities of life, even, and proper medical care to all countries in the world, to all orphans that cannot take care of themselves, but a right to be respected, to have enough food and water, as that they have a right and choose to be respected, all world leaders. And they were taken care of by caregivers or found someone who could at the time in countries and lived and went to school, as these children have rights to do, but have no money to do, are crying alone and starving. Their damaged have nervous system, heart, no one to heal it, crying in pain, suffering different bacteria, viruses, and dying. No money for proper burials. These humans are disrespected on this earth by those who would have billions of dollars and using it for negligently, not putting even in their own countries to fund proper everything, disability or anything that they're supposed to do. These humans have to resign. These humans have to give their paycheck back and give it to someone who would care, that was supposed to do their job, and use the budgets that they have, billions, to care for those and help the other less fortunate countries and orphans that cannot take care of themselves with a life to be respected and given baby formula every day till they grow up and have enough food, shelter, till they can even take care of themselves. Then to fund jobs and greenhouses and anything possible that they provide the basic nutrients for human to respect to live, enough to have enough nutritious food, water, schools, games to play. These are children alive. There's, as I stated, millions to billions of children right now in Africa like this, suffering, while millions already neglected different things. There's the $1 million industry. They're funding, illegally funding different. They could get rid of the liquor stores and fund the money, send money, water to these children. They can fire those FDA illegally proving and different pharmaceutical companies making, selling illegally different antipsychotics that I was victim of for years that they were supposed to look into. All the prime minister, other countries' president, pope to look into, make sure this didn't happen. They to look into now, get rid of those that are neglecting human rights, human dignity, not respecting and uselessly spending money to fund these, and shut them down, harming, making illegal antipsychotics that harm people and never help anyone, and to take this money and give it to the orphans, to smarten up and respect human life or resign. There you have these, rather, the president and prime minister and the pope have no right to disrespect any human life. The ones in previous years obviously didn't do enough. They have the resources, they can't say they don't. They have the contact numbers on speed dial for every world leader. They can maneuver the funding into account and have to act now. Every second count between a child eating a burger, a healthy one, and a bottle of water, a baby formula without nutrients to last them even for breakfast, then another one, a snack, and then lunchtime and dinner, and maneuver this and keep funding this for years. as they right to be respected, to have enough food and water that the president, prime ministers, and pope would love to have. Well, they have money to live and negligently spending in budgets and harming human lives, such as myself did for 20 years, a victim of horrendous medical negligence in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. 20 years, because they didn't hire proper staff and care to monitor this in the country. They hired those making millions that didn't help the patients and then was illegally harmed. And they don't fund in disability and care, but they uselessly spend it on police vehicles and other useless planes, as I stated, and don't respect human life and cannot do their job by law and under God. They are disrespectful of human life and shouldn't be working there for years. Others would love to do their job and would put the funding and help put proper medical care, staff, and care and do the job, and not me and a million people wouldn't suffer, and orphans in the world, neglected and disabled people who cannot work because of means beyond their control and have no food and water, basic necessities of human need, calories to live. Food and water, clean ones, vaccines against COVID, as other countries have, then they maneuver to these that cannot afford it. They are morally obligated under God to do. Under Jesus, they don't get away with it. Everyone human is judged in brain, mind, soul on earth, anywhere in the world, by their actions. Their jobs are know what they are to do. If they cannot make their paycheck in any job. And those that did neglected their jobs and millions suffered under them, and orphans have to give back their paycheck, make apologies to these humans, victims, and the children, orphan with no parents, caregivers, millions second day night alone, with no food and shelter, maneuver the money from their previous paycheck, even if they went on vacation with this money and they don't have it, they have to take out a loan, work it off, and put the money and rectify it, give it to the victims. Hire someone that will immediately care. They couldn't make their paycheck. Prime ministers, Pope in previous years, the president in all other countries, when they neglected innocent human lives and disabled people and innocent children, orphans that obviously cannot work, need thousands of funding just for basic life, but even neglected to fund that. Even in main countries, and those have billions clearly to put there that they would want to and have a right to be respected as humans, to live with enough food and water, shelter, they know, by law and by ethics, or bioethics laws, and under God. Religious or not, it all applies for every job didn't do their job. Millions suffered. These are responsible, the world leaders and Pope, for the neglect of these innocent lives. Children suffering and dying ill with no vaccines against coronavirus and variant strains, maneuvered there, no masks, left alone on the street, alone, not enough clothing, shelter, not enough food and water, not enough basic necessities of life, no proper school supplies, no games at all, no funding and help to these children and other humans to take care of them in simple buildings, and no funding in the economy for them, no greenhouses for growing their own vegetables, say, and fruits, and could easily been done, and 100 million lives would be respected under God as they right to be living humans, innocent babies these are, toddlers learning to walk, and no one to stand there to hold their hand, no one to give them clothing to care from them out of the rain, no umbrellas, no bed to lie on, all on sand, no shoes, insects, mosquitoes flying around, biting them, infecting them with different bacteria, viruses, becoming ill, crying, they don't know what's wrong with them, no medical care, no basic antibiotics, no basic medical clinics. All the prime minister and the pope and the world leaders need to do their job. take the millions they made and give it to the children to live. Then and apologize to them. They have lives and to be respected. When you didn't, then you shouldn't have done your job. Other people would have been hired and helped, and these children not suffered for years alone. Would have had homes and a better economy. People then grew up and had jobs as to be respected humans with enough food and water and shelter. But the prime minister and the popes previous years obviously didn't do everything in their job to do. They neglected funding to these kind-hearted souls, humans, and lives, and had no right to disrespect them. Morally, don't get away with it. I don't know how they live with themselves, but they did this and have to fix this immediately on earth. Every second counts. Whoever watches this video, please give this to the Pope, Pope Francis, any future ones. Please give it to the Prime Minister Biden, all other job titles, and a different presidents, prime ministers in the world. To hear the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and all other world organizations that deal with this to keep in mind that they are obligated in their job description and have the billions to do this. They didn't do for years, and any previous 1 years that retired have to give their paycheck back when they didn't do everything in their job description to help to maintain proper basic necessities medical care for these children. To help the victims rectify it on earth, to apologize, ask their forgiveness sincerely from heart for not providing care and proper caregivers, foster homes, funding for this, to find interview parents that would care to take care of these children to live in adult age, and haven't done and given them basic meals, a drink and food and cereal, morning eggs, a banana, an avocado, fruit throughout the day, and at dinner time. Every day, these basic even necessities, fruits and vegetables, every day didn't have one, had to live starving, and died alone. They could have had the money from these governments that chose and studied and did this, learned these different jobs of world leaders, but didn't do everything in their job to maneuver the money and have to do now. To act instantly. Angelica Jacella, I'm a human earth angel. I am a humanitarian. I am a celestial being, higher ranked than archangels in heaven on earth, in human form. I don't have the contact information for the Pope. I recently put other videos for the Prime Minister Biden. The President Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other world leaders in all job titles to respect human dignity and do their job, all in their job description to do and maneuver resources to help humanity and all animals and nature to restore the care and respect for all that they were supposed to do and those in their job titles in previous years to rectify it all immediately. To keep informing, reminding humans of all job titles about this, that when they are employed are all asked if they're gonna when they're gonna work know with other humans, if they're gonna respect them in every way, their rights as customers, patients, parishioners, those who they work with. If not gonna respect the dignity of another life as they want to be respected, they cannot be hired. And they won't do everything in their job description to care for other humans, animals, and lives in nature, then they cannot be hired. Every employer has this in every job title. And although the main high-level jobs have been employed and people have paid millions of dollars not doing everything in jobs, and million people suffered for years. Neglected even basic care, disabled not giving any money, half the world freezing and half the warm, and mostly orphans left alone, and no money to live for baby formula, for any juices, no drinking boxes, no water, and food. I have no one has the right to neglect these when they have billions to pour maneuver money immediately and have to do to these children. In Africa, you have the phone numbers. Look online, do your job. It's not my job to tell you what your job is, but I've seen online, I looked it up myself. At least I care. I'm not paid to do this. You are, but you haven't done your job. The American president, the Canadian Prime Minister, Pope Francis, previous popes. It is disgraceful. It is disheartening. It is a disrespect of human life and dignity, human rights, ethics, morals. You all shouldn't have done your jobs. You should have gave it to someone who cared, that actually was trained to do your jobs and would have cared for the health and lives of millions of orphans. They would have a healthy, happy life, enough meals, water, as you want your children, you to be respected, and homes in a shelter, even off the street, with one even enough caregivers, so they have someone there not alone crying in the dark every night. Enough baby formula and bottles send there immediately. You have to rectify. Even take your own paycheck. You did morally wrong. Under God, by law, take the money you had for years. Take the money, give it to the children. You have to morally the right to fix this on earth. Apologize to them. Apologize to the victims you left wrong. You had no right to leave them alone without food and water. You don't want to be left without food and water every day. You want to be respected as humans. They have a right to be respected as humans too. And they don't even have parents. You might have had, they don't. Every day, even if they're born till 1 year old, that's 12 months, that's 365 days a year, times 3 meals in the daytime and night, and a bed they don't have, pillow, food and water, bottles, and could have funding for years easily given to basic necessity life, even till adult age, and not given and are starving and dying and ill, and you live with yourselves in your luxury, making paychecks that you didn't do under God and have to give back and hire someone who cares. You were criminally negligent. You harmed the lives of children, left suffering alone in the cold, in the dark, what you don't want to be disrespected. You have the billions of dollars, as I stated. Take your money, do your job, take your cell phone, call these countries, find where the major orphanages are, is online. You know how to do this, you were trained to do it. It takes a few seconds. Make the phone call, find the proper authority there, put the funding there, maneuver it, send your planes that you don't need to fly to different summits. Take a plane, a relief effort, and send to those people. Do your job. Do immediately. Take even your own money that you made wrongly for years, didn't do everything in your job description to do, and give it to those victims. Apologize now. Say, I'm sorry. I had funding. I could have helped you. You wouldn't be hungry, thirsty, suffering from different ailments. You innocent baby, toddler. I'm sorry you were alone in the dark. I'm gonna fund street lights, a night light. There are dollar store, 50-cent little tap night lights, back the little batteries, flashlights. In these days, everything is not even that expensive for basic necessities to keep a little night light for a child and not to be alone in the dark for 12 hours till the sun comes up, freezing at night and too hot in the day. While you lived in luxury and gave your children expensive clothing and didn't do everything in your job description to make sure those children in Africa weren't suffering. You better give your paycheck back and help and find all the previous world leaders that did. And the popes, you have to act now in every country, help the orphans, children, disabled and enrolled, fix everything in your job description you have to do immediately, save your own soul under God. By law, you are morally responsible for the lives, as you know, of millions of people affected by your job title. You didn't do your job all in what you're capable of doing, and you kept your budget to yourself, and it didn't help the children. Stop funding useless police cruisers. Obviously, two men in bulletproof vests don't have to drive around in cruisers, burning gas, polluting the environment, million times day and night circling, doing absolutely nothing, when you could take that $1 million and give a child the money they deserve in a condo after what you left them with, alone with no food and water every day and no shelter, disabled. Some children can't even walk, need medical facilities and right to have and care. And you didn't fund this, but you had to do. The Pope, world leaders, President Biden, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, all other world leaders. Do your job or resign. I've told you before, you cannot disrespect human dignity. You have no right to disrespect any human life that you in your job description have powers and money, all resources to fund and maneuver relief efforts to care for these humans, but you didn't. For years, lives lost and suffered, you are morally responsible under God for them suffering. You could have prevented it and had to do under your job title or hire someone who would have cared and did everything to respect the dignity of life, of a valued life of a baby and a toddler and humans to care for them. Funding, so get yourselves together, do morally right, or really finally resign. Smarten up, respect human life. You disrespected my life. A victim could have hired proper medical staff, and I'm living in the well-known cities in Toronto. Was wrong illegally because of your negligence too. And me and myself disabled over 100 other humans there wrong, disabled with no funding to live on the street. I had a bright future and lost my university degree and could have saved lives, but you negligently don't do your jobs in the prime minister and president jobs and the pope. You hire the medically negligent ones. You don't hire those that care. You don't monitor the colleges, don't do their job either. You don't fund anything proper to respect human life that you're supposed to, and then you fund useless planes, B-2 stealth bombers that human health is harmed. Police extra funding when they don't do anything. You live in your own luxury with paychecks that are made to help humans or give it to someone who actually does the job to help them and put the funding with a simple phone call, and millions wouldn't suffer for years. Stop disrespecting human life. You have no right to do. Stop disrespecting human dignity. You have no right to do, by law and under God. You cannot morally sin against another human life by not doing everything in your job description to maintain the care of an innocent child, an orphan left alone. These children, because of you, suffered horrendously and died. Could have had vaccines, proper care, shelter, and left not suffering what they don't deserve. Every child deserves to be cared for with proper caregivers and home, shelter, never left alone in the dark, and never left without proper food and water. But not enough basic necessities of life, bed, a pillow, soft cover of proper materials, proper for the temperatures. You are disrespectful world leaders in certain ways, in these ways. You have to do your job or turn your paycheck in and get the other previous world leaders to support to get their paychecks back. If they spend the money, like I said, take the loans out under law, they have to give the money back and give it to the victims. Build condos there in luxury beyond any child be happy, a wonderland. Enough greenhouses for the other humans that were children there, not adults, and had no food to even get to adult age. For jobs, help their economy, maneuver them slowly to safer parts of the country with more trees, more accessible places, build stores and malls. These humans have a life to be respected and live with enough shelter, necessities, and food and luxuries that any other human is a right to have, and all do. So do your job, and anyone watching this, on all humans, please let the president know, Biden. Please let the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, know. The Pope Francis. I needed these world leaders and Pope phone numbers and contact numbers for years. It is not easy to get. I contact them in various ways but never received any reply. So these humans, these world leaders and Pope need to smarten up and get an easily accessible filing complaint department and to listen to the needs of their humans that they are governing in their countries, and the Pope, a human representative of God on earth, to do what's morally right and a huge say in what all the world leaders do, to be educated, up to date, in what's going on in the world at all time, and not resting and doing shows on Twitter. And the world leaders, Dalai Lama, all the world religious leaders, you have to do your job, respect human dignity life, or finally resign. If you don't do your job, you have criminal charges. You are bodily harming a human that you could help with funding and on your job description have to, but are not doing. And they're suffering, ill health, ill, alone, emotionally can sue for emotional damages, but they don't have money for lawyers. They are children. They don't know anything about this, are left in the world alone because of you. And you have to act and fix this in the world immediately. So please, everyone, listen. This is a serious matter. I have other recent videos stating more details about this. On Pinterest, I made this so the those in the White House, the president, have all the viewers on Twitter say and TV shows, the websites, Vatican, the Pope, all world leaders, Canadian Prime Minister, to put these pins that I made that summarize the human dignity for each job description, to respect all the humans they deal with. If they're not going to do it, then don't hire these people because they affect many customers, people under them. They know by law and under God to respect human life as they want to be respected, a valuable life. To take these pins and post these and every day as needed to every job sent enrolled. I put these already for a while and no one didn't do their job. I don't have their contact information, but I would speak to the president, prime minister, pope gladly already for a long time. I made these videos for people to please share. To rectify this all on earth immediately, every human will act, all world leaders, get rid of the funding, the FDA, illegally working staff, millions, take the money, give it to victims illegally wronged by this antipsychotic, they illegally pushing ECT, help the money, close this, take their billion-dollar paychecks, help the victims. You have to rectify this on earth. They cannot get away with it for over 100 years, illegally pushing this. Illegal, they harm human health, never help anyone. Millions suffer in Toronto alone. I have the other video prove it. I have hundreds of medical records to prove it. Everyone, please respect all human lives. Whoever other humans hear this, have contact information, get it to the world leaders, highest offices, provincial offices, states, secretary of state, get it to the main leaders, all levels of different provinces, states. There are many in Canada, states alone, other countries. They have the billions of dollars, they can't say they don't. Their main job is to care and respect all human lives, dignity, ethics, govern the countries, and help the less fortunate ones have the resources, money, contact information, make the phone calls, maneuver the little homes, beds, simple pillows, clothing, food, water, shelter, that little orphanage, and have the child even off the streets with a lighting, and a one caregiver to start and how many needed, kind-hearted ones, and then at least children are off the street, have enough food and water, how many meals they need to eat for a day or night. Would they choose? They all have a personality, each like different food. Make sure to have proper one medical clinic close by. These have to be done. Vaccines maneuvered there against coronavirus, antibiotics, simple things that every country has, medical care and hospitals are easily accessible, but not in these countries. The certain main ones where the orphans are. Certain regions include in Afghanistan, in Arakan, Sudan, Somalia, Iraq, Haiti, Patani, Lebanon, and Palestine. The other orphans in different regions in high numbers in Asia, in the Middle East, in Latin America, and Africa. Certain countries that have been plagued by war, natural disasters that have orphans, such as Haiti, Chile, Sri Lanka, Darfur, Niger, Pakistan, Mali, Chad, Syria, Indonesia, Brazil, Republic of Tanzania, Syria. The orphanage and institutions remaining in Europe and Eastern Europe. Some are state funded but need more funding. Albania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Estonia, Hungary, Lithuania, Poland, Moldova. These are already many, and there are millions to billions of orphans with no parents and caregivers, as stated. Could have been avoided, and millions of children not alone crying, if the world leaders in previous years and current ones did their jobs in their job description, and the popes. So you have a big responsibility, the world leaders and pope, to do what you have the financial resources. Even take your previous another look into their paychecks, take it back, put it to the victims, the orphans, that they had a right to have enough food, shelter, and maneuver to them immediately. Give them any extra money that would be in court given under punitive damages, emotional distress of children, to make sure that they have a proper quality of life and every joy in life. Extra toys, extra proper food and water, snacks, healthy ones, anything they choose, anything their kind little heart wants, and proper caregivers of all kind to find any proper care, but keep looking for a parent, a volunteer in the community that they would get along with. Proper pets, proper medical care, maneuver these vaccines there, the proper N95 masks, make sure that you do your job. You didn't do in the whole world either, to make sure all world leaders and Pope, World Health Organization, to have one proper medical mask during COVID N95, for example, that has a clearly stated expiry date, the percentage filtration efficacy number, the name of the chemicals that the mask is made out of. These are not clearly stated online, not easy to find, but they're given out medical buildings freely Other humans had to pay. Myself, now you could easily and do your job, care for humanity, respect their dignity, by law, under God, do morally right what you didn't do, fix everything, maneuver these masks, the proper ones fitted for these little infants, babies, toddlers, children, right to be protected against coronavirus and variant strains, mutating forms. As you know, there's Delta variants, Omicron variants, sub-variants. Different countries have different strains. Different countries also have different bacterias, viruses that need proper medical care for that specific city, that specific country that the orphans are in. And other poor, the humans taking care of them, enough funding to help them, resources, proper teachers to fund their economy for jobs. Humans standing there nothing to do would love to work, need money, the job would work for food, shelter, have nothing. Orphans, some grew up, some didn't last, some died alone in the dark, no one to take care of them, even to bury them. This is a merciful act to respect the dead, to take care of children while alive, and to take care of them when they die. And there's no one doing it on earth alone. They are. And you left them alone. The world leaders, President Biden, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, and all other world leaders, and the Pope, Francis, and previous ones, you are not proper morally right examples to run and govern countries. You know how to do, but you haven't been doing. So, do what I told you in this video, respect the lives and maneuver the funding and relief efforts to all these children, and help them in all possible ways I stated. Under God or resign. And give your paychecks that you made living luxury when you could have helped had to. You can make under God and by law. If you didn't do everything in your job description to care for your own countries, disabled and orphans and other ones, then you can't make your paycheck. And other previous prime ministers and pope, presidents, and give your money back. Give it to funding and help the victims. Hire someone who will care immediately and care for them and respect their lives as they're supposed to be done in their job descriptions. These president, world leaders of all countries, and pope to respect the children, these orphans, some disabled, to put baby formula, water, shelter, basic necessities many times a day, calculated. Do your job. You were trained for this. You know when you applied for the job, that's what you were supposed to do, but you didn't, and million people suffered. And the children, as I speak, are suffering million seconds going by, as I even spoke in this video, that you could have done your job and they wouldn't suffer, would have had a meal and not starving. And it had enough healthy muscles grown and heart when they're growing. Children, safe place to rest as required, but don't and are alone as well. So think of this, all world leaders and Pope, and smarten up. Respect human life and dignity as you want to be respected, and you want for your children to be cared for proper school, medical care, proper enough food. Consider and calculate, take the time how much they each need and give it to them. Give in your own paychecks, give it to them. You lived in luxury while they suffered, and you could have hired someone that would care and they wouldn't suffer. You cannot do this under God and by law. A human was harmed illegally because you were negligent, didn't do everything in your job description that you had to do. Millions of children, especially Africa, in many ways suffered horrendously, alive, alone. Babies, toddlers, alone every day. No parents, no shelter, in the cold alone, in the dark, too warm in the sun, dehydrated, suffering bacteria, different water. You can go online, do your job. You are trained for this, is modern day. You obviously didn't go look on these videos and do anything. They are all there. There's different, rather, organizations that care that you could easily fund. Humans actually even care to start when you didn't do anything. So you better get yourselves together and put the funding there and do your job and go along and see the news and go see what's going on in the world, or resign and give your whole paychecks back and give it to someone who would care. Apologize formally to all orphans and those you wrong victims. Ask their forgiveness sincerely to forgive you. It is their job. They have a right to forgive you or not. Under God, rectify everything and give your money to the victims, the orphans. Give them every luxury of life that a child has in every country. That you didn't give them, they suffer, no right to leave them suffering. Give them anything they possibly heart desires on earth and more enough food, shelter, and put them and fly them if they choose can as safe caregivers to any country in the world they choose to live, healthy and happy as they rightly deserve, with all the toys and all school supplies and everything, night lights, buildings, proper temperate caring climates, funded houses, jobs for the caregivers, that they when children live to adult age, suffered horrendously with no food and water because of you. You had resources, your job to do, you didn't. You neglected this, is illegal. You bodily harmed illegally innocent children because you neglected to do your whole job. Other humans would have. You didn't give your paycheck and make sure they were hard, so you have to turn your paycheck in and do morally right. Deal with the victims, the children themselves. Send apologies. Safe during COVID times is not my job to do, but I remind you, wear the mask. Set a morally right example. Social distancing. It is your jobs. You are trained. It is not my job, but I am telling you, I've seen in the world and 100 million suffer, and myself included, to see how these world leaders are not doing their jobs. And the Pope. Someone please tell the Pope to hire a younger person that is up to date, they and world leaders and what's going on in the world to morally do right. And to be more involved in the world to see and help what is going on with the orphans. Under God is above all he was supposed to do and call and do what I'm saying to call and to, make a video or to has the resources I don't to call the world leaders and act and say these things about human dignity to respect, what their job descriptions are to respect all humans, to remind them as many times needed. This is the Pope's job. He hasn't been doing this for years, and neither has any previous Pope. They're most too old. It is true, as all humans know. But I remember this and I told this, and so please watch the previous videos, some bit lengthier. Please be well rested. Watch it half at a time, watch the next one, the another half. It doesn't take that long. I could only make one video. I am beyond crippled, disabled myself because I was negligently wronged in Canada, above all countries. I don't deserve. I could have done my research and saved life for over 20 years, but couldn't. So I'm a humanitarian myself, a 4-year Bachelor of Life Science and Christian Religious Studies, ethics, research, know everything. A human real earth angel under God on earth, telling what you world leaders and Pope were supposed to do. So help the little innocent children. Find the other organizations that care, charities that already cared enough to maneuver themselves there. Help them if they already found ways to put water there. Help them. They're online. You know you have the resources. Take someone you hired, look it up. You have to act now. Every second counts between a child having drinking water clean as they rightly deserve that you are morally responsible for them to have versus water from the ground that has bugs in it, bacteria, viruses, you know. You don't want to drink and then have a distended big belly, ill, vomiting, nauseous, a child left alone, no one medical care, no antibiotics against any bacteria. Viruses going on, suffer respiratory ailment, 2 weeks and die. There's no medical care, vaccines there. Left alone a child taller getting coronavirus and no one to care for it because you are flying planes, paying, funding that, but you're supposed to care for human life. President Biden, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, all other countries, world leaders. You are disrespectful of human life in these ways. And for your previous ones, so get those paychecks from them and give it the luxury items to these children, as they rightly deserve, and a proper care for quality of life, and all humans that lived years, even adults till now, that were children there alone, and they live, and you can clearly see with the leaves there and barely shelter. Stop disrespecting humanity. Do your jobs or resign, for once and for all. Turn your paycheck in that you couldn't make because you didn't do your whole job to care for humans and obviously cannot keep. Do what's morally right. Apologize to the victims. Children, ask their forgiveness from sincerely from the heart. You are judged by God and Jesus and Holy Spirit. Every human religious or not, no. If you don't do your job, you couldn't make it. Do it. You could have hired someone who did. If you don't, you have to rectify this on earth with the victims as their forgiveness. The orphans that you live wrong could have and had to give money to them to live. Basic necessities of life. Proper quality of care, proper foster parents, adoptive, caring, find proper parents, jobs for them, children, resources to learn, school supplies, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, nice quality, fine, take the effort, extra seconds, quality clothing so it doesn't burn in the sun, to it's nice on the skin that you would want to have. Take the time, put the effort in, take your $1 billion, give it to them now in the account. They start building the house, the child in a nightlight. Go to the dollar store, buy in bulk, it's sold online, some bulk ones. Send it there, sanitized. I even helped you. Angelica saw this in the world, and I'm telling you the truth, what you were supposed to do. You know more than I do, but I suffer with seeing this while you left it and no right to do. Millions of people seeing what you're supposed to do and help these children, but didn't. There are other lives affected. It's not about only the orphans. So please do your jobs immediately. Every second counts between a child dying or suffering what could have clean water and rightly deserve as a valued human life on the earth as you want to be respected. Their dignity they have, and they are children, cannot work. They cannot go walk to a store. There are no stores nearby to buy food. Don't know what it is. They're too young. No bottles. Baby bottles. No baby bottles with baby nutritious formula. No milk, no water. They have bones to grow, need calcium, vitamin D from the sun, someone to teach them this. They want to learn. They have a right to learn, to have a job. Then you have to maneuver your funding resources. Put it there. Do it now. World leaders, other world leaders, take your own money that you left that didn't help. No, more consciously cannot live with this. Give your money, some of it, to them. Do what is morally right to fix this immediately on the earth. Get rid of the pharmaceutical illegally harming people. Take the $1 billion out of the previous year that they made by law. You can take away their paychecks. They didn't do right. Harm million lives, help the victims, and give whatever extra money to these children. You act right now, have the phone number. I don't. Obviously, these are pharmaceutical companies that are hard to contact by any basic humans. These are need high-level lawyers or contact humans with contact information that the prime ministers or presidents have. So you do your job. Take your phone these people, fire the ones wronging humans. Under the job description, under God and by law can't. Take their paycheck they couldn't make, and they harmed lives. They were supposed to help lives. Help the victims, put formal apologies, tell them to sincerely when they think for forgiveness and not put them in prison. They illegally harmed million lives, disrespect the dignity, rights, human rights. Humans became ill. not allowed to be harmed, disrespected. Every life is a valuable life. No one has the right, including world leaders that have resources, to harm another life, to leave them in the cold, a child with no parents, no food and water, shelter none, no lights in the dark, alone crying. Stop funding planes and military and take your money and give it to the children. Or resign and go take yourselves in handcuffs to prison where you belong. You illegally harm million lives, and you live in your luxury. So morally do what is right to fix it on the earth immediately and save your own souls too on earth. No one gets away with it under God on earth is assessed, and out of respect of Jesus and the lives of others, so you can have no right to sin against anyone, to disrespect within your job title have abilities to fund and care for children, millions in the world, but didn't. And the adults you were years ago, children, adults now, and barely made it, and have no jobs and no shelter and no food, water and ill for years because you didn't do your job, but you had to do. To bodily harm and leave someone suffering like that against freedom of choice is illegal human torture and punishable by punishable rather by imprisonment. All paychecks taken away that were made over the years when this happened. So you world leaders and Pope, you have to smarten up and do your job. There's a million people on earth. You left most of them suffering because you didn't do your job entirely. In other ways, medical field too. Mainly psychiatrists you had to clean up. I put another video. It is your job to see this. I'm an intelligent human that lost 2 decades suffering because of medically negligent staff, colleges hiring them at higher levels, and no financial disability help to quality life for human enough thousands to live when they wrong me. Had no right to do. And the prime ministers and them hiring these letting into the country not doing their job could have avoided this, and I wouldn't suffered for 2 long decades and poor, homeless, and brain damaged, disabled because of their negligence. Not doing their job in their job description, all they had resources to do to hire, make sure proper caring medical staff, psychiatric staff. I was affected wrong illegally by 100 medical staff in Toronto alone is true there over 20 years, and some humans other 20 more than 20 years and 10 years still. And pharmaceutical companies you didn't call, make the phone calls, stop it all. I put the videos, didn't do your job yet. This is not allowable under God. You morally wronged and harmed million lives. You are responsible for the health failing and torture of 100 million people. Medically negligent staff led into the country hard, not following up on who's hiring them, who you're employing under you, not following up. They did wrong, made millions. They cannot have to take away their paycheck, help the victims, rectify on earth. It is your job. You didn't do your job, so I'm telling you, a human that is a horrendous victim of it all and seen everything in the world, and telling you humans to respect other human lives as you want to be respected and do your jobs. In your job description, or finally resign and give it to someone who needs money and use it for food and actually care and do their job. Fund million people already, but they were supposed to be funded for healthcare, proper necessities of life, respect their lives, fire medically negligent staff, help the victims, help the poor orphans in this video, as I'm stating, millions children, simple orphanages, funding and keep checking up and follow how they're doing, keep sending something proper that they want to see, give them the luxuries of life that they rightly deserve more than any human alive after you left them wrong, suffering alone. Babies, toddlers, teenagers, humans to adult age, other poor people. Act now, do your job, and save your own soul on earth. Or resign, give your all previous paychecks and other world leaders back to these kind orphans, children, and Pope. Tell him to do his job and find someone who cares under God and do his job. Tell him to view my videos and use these videos so he can educate himself what his actually job was. I am a humanitarian, but an earth angel, and I would tell the Pope myself, be advisor to him for years. I have free will to do, but I don't have the resources, and he was supposed to help me for years, but I exhausted all my resources trying to contact him, even by mail, and never replied to me. He never did his job, Francis or once before, and I suffered alone without him. In my matters, under God, he cannot do. He is obviously not a proper, under God, world leader that is under God morally responsible and to look into help orphanages and get world leaders funding if needed, and did nothing. And the previous Benedict, Pope, and other ones before. They have to give their money back, paycheck, and to the victims of different things that they left, and orphanages. They cannot keep their money they made and didn't do their job, everything they could to help make sure they didn't suffer alone, without the best basic necessities of life, rather. And every luxury that they deserve as a normal child to live a healthy life with school, proper supplies, gifts, and the proper clothing for their climate, umbrellas, basic buildings, light, night light, and proper caregivers found. So every child has a personality to find a matching parent couple to take care of them, fund, give them all the money to take care of this child. So they are not alone. You don't want to be alone. No child wants to be alone. They cannot take care of themselves, especially if disabled. Cannot work, cannot they don't know how to take care of themselves, how to go walk a toddler, to go find a bottle of milk when there isn't one, and alone in the dark, with no food and water. So do your job. I stated the list online found basic countries where these orphanages are. You have the more resources, it's online. You have the staff. Take your seconds, look it up, find the proper ones, maneuver the money, make the new orphanages. Some don't even have the orphanages. They're outside on the street, barely have a building. Someone might take in a child for a bit, but they don't have money to help them with food. And you have to fund this. And you can see clearly online that the malls, even their basic stores, but are far away from basic cities, miles humans walk and don't even have can't even walk there with no shoes in the sand, burning the feet in the sun, with no shoes, no sandals, and have to live that way with basic clothing, children, little children, girls, sanitary pads they need, diapers, don't have, need more underwear, clothing. These are human lives that need these basic necessities you didn't fund for years. And millions of lives suffered and lost, and you're morally responsible because you didn't do everything in your job title. You had all powers, authorities on earth, and resources financial to accomplish. So, everyone, please do your job. Care for these orphans. You have the resources. If you didn't leave me disabled, then I would have worked and saved their lives as much as I can. I beyond poor and donate to whom I can, but I don't even have money because of you. And so world leaders and Pope, do your job and care for the orphans. Rectify everything best you can, save your souls. By law as well. If not, turn yourself in criminal charges you have. You neglected to provide the basic necessities of life and help the little babies that can't even take care of themselves for years, and previous leaders. Take the money, give it to them. As their apology, apologize to them. As their forgiveness, it is their choice to forgive you. Do what is morally right. If you cannot run your country, the country to respect dignity, find someone finally who can. Every world leader. Immediately, every second counts in human life. And the Pope, Francis. My name is Angelica Gichella. I'm a human earth angel, a humanitarian, with the best interest of preventing humans, rather, and all animals, pets, nature, and creation from suffering. I've seen it suffered all myself as well, So I'm making this video only what I can do. I don't have the resources. I tried, never contact me back. But under God, had to do. So you have whoever has access to the White House, contact information to the Prime Minister, to the Pope, to all world leaders. I would love to speak to them. These are basic videos and pins I made on Pinterest. I have to add followers if they can please view this and share to million in the world. That's what my videos are for, to restore all humans caring, to be human earth angels, a part of a human worldwide earth angel movement, to care for all humans, to care for their own health and respect all that of others, to help any way they can, using their virtues as soul when they're healthy, to help others, to prevent and relieve the suffering of others, financially, to help the homeless, the thirsty, the hungry, the dead, to care for, bury them, to perform spiritual works of mercy, to perform corporal works of mercy, to care, use kindness, their virtues, understanding, compassion for others, to do kind acts, even smiling, to promote this, to prevent humans and stop them from suffering, so that their lives are made easier to live, so they have joy brought to their hearts and souls, and heaven on earth to them as they rightly deserve, especially these orphans. They have no parents every second gone by, as I stated. Remember this, listen, as I told this, from the heart and soul of a human, real earth angel, humanitarian, with the best interest of the orphans in mind, for all world leaders to listen and act now and be human earth angels yourself. Use your gifts. Help do with all resources you do have. You've heard this on earth. You have to act. This is under God and Jesus, Holy Spirit spoken to humans, religious or not, known world leaders. I am a human with high authority, ranking under God on this earth, speaking the truth to the Pope and world leaders and all of the world leaders, religious leaders. Do your job. And other world organizations, to maneuver what funding you have, care for the little children, orphans, the poor, disabled, any victims you wrong, right the wrongs, put the funding there, and then you will respect the dignity and life of little children, orphans. They will not be alone. No one is allowed to be left alone, especially a baby without food and toddlers, teenagers. Any humans then after alone. No one is allowed to be left alone. You don't want to be left alone. Think of it that way. You don't want your children left alone without a parent. These children are alone. They are orphaned. They already suffered, maybe lost seed parents in natural disasters, flooding, earthquakes, are left alone. No one to care for them, no food, injured potentially, no medical clinics, suffering there with damaged knees, legs, injuries, open wounds, no band-aids even. Maneuver band-aids, basic medical little devices, things to take care of humans. Do your jobs. You have the resources, you know for years how to accomplish this, didn't, then do your jobs. Do what is right, hire those that will help you. Act now, save the lives of millions of children, provide proper quality life and basic necessities. Give them the heaven on earth they deserve, luxuries in life after you left them wrong. They didn't deserve to suffer this way when you had the billions to accomplish this, but didn't do. World leader and Pope, all humans, please get this information to them, and you help too, please. Help the orphans. There are real orphanages. Some are stated to be fake, but a lot have been got rid of online. But there, most, as you can see, there are true 100 million in not only the orphan children, the humans living there are beyond living poor and don't have any food. And a turn to day and night dehydrated and no medical, no care facilities at all. Miles to the closest main city mall, miles. They cannot go to like a main mall or store. There's no clean air conditioned houses if it's too hot. They're alone children and then teenagers, adults. The girls not enough, no padding. The children don't have, as I stated, diapers, no bottles, baby bottles, no baby formula, no water, all clean, nothing, and have to live. Some houses made of cardboard, maybe a few leaves for roof, and that's it. These humans, a kind heart, love to work but have no jobs and born this way, and no one funding it but had to do. There's the billions, obviously, are all humans listening. Tell them, and you make a video or tell this to the head offices you can get to the premiers of Ontario, to the how to get and then get to Justin Trudeau, to the President Biden, the secretaries of state, get them to contact the president. They have to respect dignity and do with their money they have to stop funding extra police, as I said, cruisers, other useless planes, flying in air shows. Billions could help children and have caregivers and houses for these people, to Africa especially, other places. Recently, there were earthquakes. Funding get to there. You have the resources. You cannot say you don't. You know you're trained in your job description to do this. Have the phone numbers. So do your job right away. Every second counts. And fix everything on earth that you were supposed to do. Morally right, legally right, respect human dignity and life of all infants, toddlers, teenagers, orphans, and of adult age that you had to respect didn't, and rectify what you can as I told you how in this video on earth to do. And then they will be happy. They will not be alone, have proper caregivers, shelter as they rightly deserve, as you want to be treated with respect. Not alone, proper baby bottles. If a child when is hungry has a baby bottle and right when it needs it for nutrients, growing new organs for years, walking. There are proper night lights, clean water, sanitized, coronavirus masks, different masks against different bacteria viruses, preventative measures taught to them, teachers given to them, school supplies, gifts, a serious amount of them. They deserve every luxury after they suffered alone there with nothing to eat because you didn't do your job. Housing, help those that were there are the orphans for years. Ask them how they would be happy. Give them more toys. Give them anything that they choose, their little hearts desire to make them happy. It is your job, act now. There are millions, so start doing it. I told you how, it's not my job, but I suffer seeing this, well, you didn't do your job. You know right to leave humans suffering seeing this, but you could easily help and prevent millions others suffering seeing it as well. The world leaders, Pope, all of other countries, not only Canada and States, Germany, England, France, Poland, all different countries, all have the resources and financial to maneuver to Africa and all the other in the world immediately, relief efforts, and keep funding it so they have enough basic necessities of life to respect their human dignity as a valued human life, to have this all and be treated with respect and never left alone and cared for orphans. Thank you for listening. Please, all humans who can watch this, help them as well. There are certain charities online that are credible that actually maneuver and get water and help humans can fund too to donate that care to start this in certain countries, Africa. But yet the world leaders who do have the funding, they cannot say they don't. To stop wasting their money and use the budget what it is to intend it to not only help those in their own country, but help those other countries that have less money and are required by law and under God to do, according to their job description they know are trained to do. If they don't, resign, give the money back they made, cannot keep their paycheck, and give it to someone that will help human health and not harm that left it harmed, with not enough food and shelter, basic necessities. Orphans left alone didn't have to be. Thank you for listening. Everyone, be human earth angels. Use your virtues, care for others, help others, prevent their suffering, relieve their suffering any way you can as humans. Bring joy to their hearts and souls, and restore heaven to earth to all, in that way as they rightly deserve to be respected as human beings, especially little kind little earth angel human babies, orphans that need to be taken care of and raised obviously milliseconds while they're little babies growing to 1 years old, 2 years old. Every year is 365 days and nights. Need funding, water, food, baby bottles, shelter, beds, clothing, shipped there all the time. Started the people working there, put a small factory, ship there, dollar stores sell things beyond the pennies made. Can they can send it other countries from China, properly sanitized though, in bulk, takes not much money, and send million little t-shirts, white ones with long sleeves, remember, keep out of the sun, long pants, white, clean ones if it's colder, feminine padding for the girls, baby diapers, to assess this and give this, ship it, takes few pennies in these days and can be shipped, then you have to act now and give to them what these children rightly deserve for years. Respect their little lives. World leaders, Pope, and anyone who can financially help them, and other resources. Thank you for listening. Please remember the orphans, even in your prayers. They are kind little hearted souls. No one is to be left alone.